The dawn mist over the Aberdare foothills still glowed lilac when Njeri Mwangi unlocked the doors of Karungo Hills Coffee Cooperative. The trees were latticed with weaverbird nests, and the first cicadas had hardly started gossiping, yet Njeri relished these quiet moments before the clatter of dryers, the laughter of pickers, and the aroma of fresh cracked beans filled the compound. She pressed the big green button on the Probat roaster, listened to the satisfying hum of the drum beginning to spin, and pulled out her clipboard. Roast log, she wrote. Batch KHC 0712A, So 545. She added ambient temperature, humidity, and the name of the smallholder who had delivered the cherries. It was ordinary bookkeeping that any quality control supervisor might do, but Njeri approached it as her own quiet ritual, part science, part fellowship with the farmers who entrusted their harvest to the co-op. On her way to the cupping lab, she passed Josephine, the cooperative's accountant, who was fussing over a stack of invoices. Josephine's brow was creased, but she greeted Njeri with her typical sing-song cheer. "Someone left a parcel for you," she said, pointing at a small jute sack balanced atop a filing cabinet. Njeri opened it expecting green beans, or perhaps the guavas her Aunt Rachel sent when she was in a generous mood. Instead, she found a single elephant figurine carved from soapstone, its tusks delicately inlaid with copper wire. A scrap of paper tucked beneath it read, merely a keepsake from a grateful visitor. Keep roasting excellence. No signature. Tourists often pass through Karungo for coffee tours, but the unsolicited token felt oddly personal. Njeri set it on her desk and resumed her rounds, unaware that the figurine was the first puzzle piece in a mystery hiding in plain sight. At 10, the cooperative's meeting bell rang, summoning staff to the veranda. The new logistics manager, Mr. Chui, stood beside a glossy map tacked to the wall, the network of roads from Karungo to Nairobi, the rail spur to Mombasa, and curiously, a thick blue ribbon marking the Tana River. Njeri had never seen the river highlighted on a coffee shipping chart. Trucks, shoulder to shoulder on the highway, were their lifeline to port. "We're exploring multimodal pathways," Mr. Chui announced in a smooth tenor. "River barges can relieve road congestion. Efficiency is profit." He clicked a laser pointer at 3 red circles: Mid-Tana Ferry Crossing, Kabuku Dock, Sabaki Estuary. "These are potential transfer hubs." Something in his demeanor, confident yet evasive, snagged Njeri's attention. She glanced at Josephine, who raised a skeptical eyebrow but kept silent. The meeting ended with polite applause. As people dispersed, Njeri lingered and studied the map. The red circles felt arbitrary. None were near the large wet mills that processed their parchment. But Chui noticed her scrutiny. "Curious mind, Ms. Mwangi?" he asked. "Always," she answered, forcing a smile. "But our roasted shipments leave on lorries. How would a river barge fit?" Chui laughed, palm out, as though smoothing a wrinkle in the air. "Options, nothing final. Innovation requires imagination." He pocketed his pointer and strode off before she could press further. That afternoon, Njeri cupped the morning roasts with 2 visiting buyers. The cups bloomed with honey, hibiscus, and sun-dried tomato. Praise buoyed her mood, but the soapstone elephant niggled at her, and so did the map. Back in her office, she opened the roasting database on her laptop. She scrolled through weeks of timestamps: ZOE 45, ZO 930, 1410. She froze. Every 5th batch, when plotted against the calendar, landed on what she vaguely remembered as market days along the Tana River. That seemed silly, yet patterns were her bread and butter. She printed the log and highlighted the anomalous batches. They formed a neat diagonal across the page, like stitches. She shoved the printout in her bag, locked the office, and headed to her grandmother's house at the edge of the tea fields. Gogo Wanjiru kept a battered radio that caught everything from Nairobi pop to maritime bulletins. While simmering Erio over the hearth, Njeri asked her grandmother about river traffic. The Tana? Gogo mused. The fishermen complain of new barges moving at odd hours, night runs, bright lights on the water. They scare the hippos. Night runs on market days? Maybe. Why do you ask? Njeri hesitated. No reason, Gogo. Just another pattern. That night, she laid the roast log beside a map she printed from the county website, dotting Chui's 3 river hubs with a red pen. Her highlighted roasts all occurred within 12 hours before the nights the unknown barges left each point, according to a local blog she discovered. Coincidence was possible. Yet if someone wished to hide something inside coffee sacks, sinking with roasted shipments made sense. Customs agents rarely reopened bags of roasted beans. The aromatic oils stained any contraband. She remembered the soapstone elephant and its copper tusks. Ivory. The thought chilled her. Morning delivered more puzzles. Josephine summoned her to the finance office. Look at the fertilizer invoices, the accountant whispered. 4 tons delivered, only 2 signed for by farmers, and the supplier's stamped address doesn't exist. Fertilizer could be a front, Njeri murmured. But for what? Josephine gestured to her calculator. Each bogus ton costs exactly the same as renting a flatbed truck from here to Mid-Tana Ferry. Mid-Tana, one of Chui's hubs. Njeri felt a rush of adrenaline. Joe, she said, lowering her voice, I think someone's using our coffee to launder ivory. Josephine's eyes widened, then softened with determination. We need proof. They agreed to meet that evening at the Sagana Riverside Market, where farmers sold macadamias and children set paper boats afloat. Josephine found a fisherman named Kamau, who confirmed that new barges loaded crates at Mid-Tana 3 times a month, always after sundown, always polite but guarded. I saw cracked husks of coffee cherries leaking from one crate, Kamau added. Thought it odd. Everyone knows roasted beans come in jute, not plastic tubs. Njeri's hunch solidified. Someone roasted beans at Karungo, repacked them, and nestled ivory inside the tubs. The cooperative's impeccable reputation provided cover. She thanked Kamau and tipped him with a bag of peaberry. On the walk back, twilight painted the river bronze. Njeri drafted a plan. We'll adjust the roster, she told Josephine. Create a phantom batch on their next shipping day. Chui's accomplices will arrive, but there'll be nothing to load, and the police will be waiting. Which police? Josephine asked, skeptical. You know bribery can turn help into harm. Inspector Odhiambo, Njeri said. She had cupped coffee for the inspector's wife's brunch club. He was honest to a fault. If we give him airtight data, he'll act. Josephine exhaled, half relieved, half terrified. Then let's start. Over the next 2 days, they built their case. Njeri printed roasting logs, highlighting the suspicious diagonal. Josephine reconciled fertilizer invoices against lorry rentals, exposure sheets, and Chui's travel per diems. Kamau photographed the secretive barges from a distance with his battered phone. At dawn on Friday, Njeri visited Odhiambo at the county station, her evidence stacked in a recycled carton that smelled faintly of cinnamon. The inspector listened without interruption, a habit that made people talk more. When she finished, he drummed fingers on the desk. You understand, he said. Ivory trafficking attracts dangerous people. I do. But our cooperative is being used as camouflage. Odhiambo nodded. We'll set a net, quietly. That afternoon, the inspector, 2 plainclothes officers, and a KWS ranger toured Karungo Hills under the guise of a coffee education session. They admired fermentation tanks and plugged in moisture meters while discreetly inspecting packing lines. And Jerry showed them the roaster's digital brain, Chui's password still taped under the control panel. She printed an amended schedule, one that listed a large Saturday midnight roast, codenamed KHC-0OET Sate Zed. In reality, the roaster would be cold. Odhiambo's team concealed a GPS beacon inside an empty jute sack and stacked it on a pallet labelled with the phantom batch number. Whoever came to fetch it would unwittingly escort the beacon straight to their warehouse. Saturday crept in with scorching sun, a windless lull that left the coffee trees drooping. Chui was nowhere to be found all day. When the cooperative closed at 5, Odhiambo's unmarked Land Cruiser parked in a thicket beyond the gate. And Jerry, Josephine, and Kamau waited at Gogo's house, radios tuned to police frequency. At 22:10, a crackle sounded. Loaders entering perimeter, Odhiambo whispered. And Jerry pictured them bypassing the main office, tipping back the sliding door to the storage shed. Would they notice the roaster sitting silent? Would the absence of coffee aroma spook them? She chewed her thumbnail, earning a tisk from Gogo. Minutes dragged. Then, truck departing, GPS active, maintain shadow. Jerry exhaled. Josephine squeezed her hand. From Karungo, the road wound 30 kilometers to Mid-Tanna Ferry. The convoy of law enforcement vehicles followed at a discreet distance. Kamau, standing at the riverbank, relayed updates. Headlights approaching, men barking orders to boat hands, crates hauled aboard. Suddenly, in Jerry's radio hissed with urgency. "Engage!" Odhiambo commanded. Sirens split the night. Floodlights ignited the ferry dock, turning dark water into a mirror. The smugglers scattered, but one misjudged the gangplank and plunged into the shallows with a shriek. Jerry and Josephine waited, breath held, as officers secured the gang. 10 minutes felt like an hour. Finally, Odhiambo's voice returned. Ivory confiscated, roast sacks empty save straw and limestone to mimic weight. Chui detained on sight. Cheers erupted inside Gogo's hut. Even the old radio fizzed as if applauding. But Njeri's celebration was tempered by sorrow for the slaughtered elephants whose tusks filled those crates. No victory could resurrect them. 2 days later, the cooperative convened an emergency meeting. Members packed the veranda, restless with rumour. Njeri explained how roasting schedules had been manipulated and how false fertilizer invoices financed the operation. A murmur grew into chatter, until Gogo, regal in her kanga, stood and raised a hand. "Our vigilance saved not only elephants," she said, "but the dignity of our coffee. Let us honour both." They voted unanimously to donate 10% of sales from the next export lot to anti-poaching patrols in Tsavo. They also elected Njeri interim logistics manager until a rigorous background check could be instituted for any successor. Life at Karungo Hills settled back into its comforting rhythm, though the scent of danger lingered like smoke. One crisp Tuesday, as the sun slanted over dew-laden leaves, Njeri discovered a plain envelope on her desk. Inside lay a photo of a baby elephant splashing in red dust and a note in familiar handwriting, Inspector Odhiambo's. "Because you cared about patterns," she read. "A calf keeps its mother, a river breathes easier, and your coffee tastes even sweeter. Thank you." She pinned the photo beside the soapstone elephant, whose copper tusks she had painted white to erase the cruel suggestion of Ivory. Then she logged the day's first roast. batch KHC 901A0602. The beans cracked like tiny fireworks, releasing aromas of caramel and hope, and Njeri allowed herself a satisfied smile. Patterns could conceal wrongdoing, but in the right hands they could also reveal truth, and roast a brighter future cup by fragrant cup.